Hello, you fucks. Welcome to John Solo's Beard Brigade. I'm John Solo. You are not. And welcome to the big show. It's Monday. It feels like we haven't done this in forever, but really, we just took last week off because apparently it was a holiday. I know some of these things now. I'm getting better. I'm trying my best. Welcome to everybody in the crowd. So, yeah, we took last week off, and to be honest, I can't remember what the fuck I did. That was a week ago. Who the hell knows? But we're back and we're back in style. We've been doing what I call the push. It's the big push. Now it has nothing to do with you sick fucks and what you always think of. It's nothing like that. We have been um, doing about 1.5 again times as much work as we normally do over the last. I guess it's coming on 6 weeks now, and it's been fun. It's been invigorating. I feel like I'm really back in the pocket again with the narration. It's been exhausting. It's been all of those things. But that is finally coming to an end here, and we're going to be getting back to a normal schedule here in the booth. That is coming up this Wednesday. We're currently working on actually our guest today. Amazingly enough, this lined up. We're working on Kiki Clark, the name that's fun to wear on your mouth, or I forget what the saying was we made up for that. But anyways, we are working on Kiki Clark's book. It's the third book in the Leather and Chrome series. It's called Yearning, not to be confused with Yearling, which is what I named the first three chapters. And my internal, I was like, Chapter 1, Yearling. So for some reason, the book was about horses in the beginning, but anyways, we're working on that. We should be wrapping that up tomorrow. We'll be putting it up over to the ACX gods here very soon. And hopefully that will be out for you either this weekend or early next week for your listening pleasure. After that, next week is a busy week. In the ticker, I actually have it set up that we're working on Anna Ashley's first book in her, it's called Antagonist. Forget Dads of Stillwater, I think is the name of the series. But also, we just got in a manuscript for a Tantor project, too, that we're going to be working on next week, which is Vet Shop Boys Book 5. Don't ask me the name of that one. It's got me something. Got me humping. I don't really know the name. Me and Casey have talked about the naming conventions of that series. But anyways, we're going to be working on that hopefully next week as well. Hey, Tracy, you're going to have to pre-read that really, really fucking quick. You're welcome. So we got that coming up too. This Thursday, of course, we're still going to be doing the Ramblin' Gremlin. This is going to be an interesting episode this week, and this is because I am I'm getting some dental work done on Wednesday. This has been a long time coming. Anybody that follows me knows that I just started. I hadn't been to the dentist in like 10 years or something. It's ridiculous. I know that's very unhealthy, but I hadn't. But thanks to the lovely old SAG-AFTRA Actors Union, I finally got good insurance and I went to the dentist. I did the cleaning and shit, and they laid out, it was a scroll, okay? They were like, here is all the work you need to get done. And it was, and like my wallet exploded and all that shit. But we're getting the first part of it done this Wednesday. I'm actually going to be out of the booth, out of the studio this Wednesday through this Sunday. But I'm going to come back for the Ramblin' Gremlin Thursday because that's a very special thing to me. So I might have like puffy chipmunk cheeks and I might not be able to talk, which would probably make the show better as far as that goes. And I'm sure little Miss Gremlin herself is probably going to talk for both of us. I'm sure it's not going to be a problem. But Thursday's episode this week that we're filming in the Facebook group, then of course it goes on to YouTube on Friday, will be an interesting one. We shall see how that goes. It's a lot of work all at once. So yeah, past that, I'm kind of excited. After this 6-week push, as you might say, after this 6-week push, we're finally getting back around to the normal schedule, which is typically about 10 finished hours a week for us. And I'm really excited about it. It's been fun, but I'm ready to calm down. So I'm going to bring in our guest here, and everybody. We were just talking off the air. This is, well, here, let me bring her on here. Hey, Kiki, how the hell are you? Hi. Everything going all right?
Hello.
This is your third time on the show, is that it?
I think so.
Yeah.
Like back in I think January I was on, and then last fall, I think.
Yeah. Well, we need to get this. So I built a monster, a machine. It's I learned this term, and I've been out of day jobs for so long that I didn't know this was a term now. It's called a CRM, a Customer Relations Management System. Have you ever heard of this
Sounds like it's
sort of? Yeah, it's way cool. So what it is it it allows me to track all of my clients and all of my projects and everything else, and they kind of talk to each other. So like if I book a project, it has all the details of the project and it links to the client. So then if I look at the client, I can see how many projects I've worked for them already and how many are coming up in the future. And it's like there's a term for it. It's called a relational database. So
interesting.
I
You can
know.
just remember these things
Well, you see, that's the point. My brain does not remember these things. It's my brain is meant to conceive ideas. It's not meant. Well, I'm
to
like a
hold.
dad. Yeah, I'm like a dad in the '80s. I'm meant to make them. I'm not meant to take care of them. But anyways, was that too far? There was that.
I
Um,
mean, I was like end of '89 when I was, so I feel like it doesn't offend me.
Yeah, it really is cool because now I can look and see like, hey, what books have I worked on for Kiki, and what books am I going to work on in the future for Kiki, and all that fun shit. But what it
I like
I
to
have
think you remember all of my books, that they're so memorable. They are seared in your brain. That's what I like to think. That's
yeah,
what I imagine in my head.
funny enough, I mean, I'm an actor and I can act like things are true, but I'm not very good at it. So
Wow.
no,
I'm
no,
not very good at my job of acting.
precisely.
Here, pay me money to act out your books.
People keep paying me. It's ridiculous. I don't know
Ugh,
why. I just faked my way into
we
this.
should probably stop that.
So why so do you get the we've talked about this before, but I love the topic so much. Do you get the imposter syndrome still? Is that still like a huge part of your brain process, your life?
I mean, yes, it's to the point because I'm on the book I'm working on right now. I think is my 13th, and so at this point, like I know what it is when it happens. Like about midway through the book, I'll be like, "This is garbage. Like this book is not good. It's not interesting. No one's going to like it. Nothing's happening. It's just this character's doing this and that character's doing that, but nothing's really happening. I'm like, it's boring." And then you just push through that, and then you get towards the end and you're like, oh, that actually wasn't that bad. Like, so I've learned that this is my process. I just have that saggy middle where I'm like, nope, garbage. I should not be doing this. Apparently 12 is all I had in me, and now it's nothing.
I get that.
But
It's always it's so you finished it's always about three-quarters of the way from me, by the way, and it's always on some of the more challenging projects. There are some projects I don't get these very often anymore, but early on in my career, there were some projects where they had me just like second guessing every decision I'd ever made in my life to get me to this point. Or I was like, why the fuck am I here? Now I don't get those projects much anymore. I'm very blessed and grateful. I have, and uh, not to kiss your ass, but um, I'm sure it's pleasant as far as that goes. But
no, go ahead, do
I mean,
it.
but the fact is, you are really good at what you do, and most of my clients at this point are really good. So it's a
Thank
privilege
you.
to work on good books. But so you get in these challenging projects and I have to do some things that are stretching my ability set and that sort of thing. And about three-quarters of the way through, I'm just curled up into a fetal position late at night in my bed, just like, I hope nobody ever listens to this. Like and and then at the end of it, I don't go back and listen to my work anymore. I don't. Very rarely. The only time it ever happens is when I'm like going and listening to a sample. But that's where it gets me, is I will go back and listen to the sample. Well, I just had to do this with your book. Go back and listen to my previous character samples, and I'm like, holy shit, that's pretty good. That ain't fucking that bad.
Not half bad.
Exactly. Like, it's not bad. The other time though, do you get fans reaching out to you on Facebook, just people you've never met before, you don't know their name, you haven't seen? Do you get that at all?
Sometimes. Um, it. I mean, usually like right after a book comes out, I will get on. I feel like on Instagram more than on Facebook anymore. Um, people like send me a message or whatever, and it's, oh, like, what book's gonna be next? What character's gonna be next? When will it be out? Like that kind of stuff. And then there's always Melissa, like,
Yeah,
badgering me. Just kidding, just kidding.
little Alyssa Gramling. You can't hold her down. She's But the difference here is everyone has heard of Alyssa Gramling. She's a bigger deal than me or you combined. She's a um,
Probably, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the other point though where I really find and I get it in two places normally. One is on Facebook Messenger. I get just random people out of the blue, and it's just the most. I've learned because I used to do the. Oh, I'm sorry you listened to that. That was a horrible performance, and I can do better. And please just don't tell my mom, and all these things. Now I've learned because my best friend taught me to just say thank you, and that helped a lot. But those are always. But the fun one now is in Discord. In Discord, it happens. I don't know how often. Maybe once every month, once every 2 months. Somebody will pop in that I've never seen before, just in our room, and it's a public forum. Anybody can go in there, and I'll pop in, and
Right.
there's one of two reactions that I see, and this is very humbling to me. The first is, "Oh my God, is that John Solo?" And that is just like, I'm like, yeah, yeah, I'm a big deal.
Yeah, it is.
The other one is they'll pop in and you'll see them for about 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, or something like that, and then they bolt. And it's typically right after I've said cock, um, star-shaped asshole, any of these terms that just tend to populate in our books. But
Buzzwords.
you might say that they are buzzwords.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. You gotta
so
have a certain number.
I've run into a couple fun scenes in your book that I'm working on right now, and I wanted to ask you a question,
What?
not specifically about this book, but it could be. Tell me about the hardest scene that you've had to write recently, the hardest one, whether it be emotional hard, whether it just be I don't know what to fucking do hard, the hardest scene that you've written recently.
Actually, when I was listening to you earlier in Discord, the scene where Houston and Kenneth are like talking right before the first Shibari scene, that chapter was really hard because, like, I think because it is like a transitional scene, like they're going from that will we won't we to hell yeah we will, but you don't want it to not make sense. Like it has to be real for those characters. Like with Kenneth, like he doesn't have that experience. He's a nurse by day. He's innocent in ways, unlike in past books with like Ollie, like who was the opposite of innocent and you could just do whatever with him. But so it had to make sense for him to want these things and to have that sort of internal, okay, is it okay that I want this? Is it okay that we talk about this? And so it was a difficult chapter to write, but in the end I felt like it turned out pretty good. Like when I was listening to you do it, I was like, you know what, that's not that bad. Like when I was writing it, it took forever. Like I kept having to like skip it and go to something else, and then I'd come back and I'd work on it a little bit more, and I'd be like, no, let's change this and let's tweak that. And so that's usually when I know that it's a hard chapter, is like I'll just like skip it all together, or like just write a brief little like what the scene is going to be, and then move on to what happens next, which I do that with a lot of my sex scenes. I don't write them necessarily like as they come up. It's okay, in this scene so and so is getting a blowjob, and then and then I just move on to the next part.
Well, I like that
So
though.
because
I
those
like
can,
your that process of stepping away from it and getting back, which I don't have the luxury to do sometimes in my profession.
sure.
It's kind of you're rolling, and it's got to be a not a seamless take per se, but you really have to. If you start a chapter, you better fucking finish it that day right there. Otherwise, it's noticeable. People are like, well, that wasn't recorded on the same day. It just you can hear it.
Yeah.
But the walking away from it, I love also that you brought up the the transition and character arc in a scene like that, and how hard you think
Hmm.
about it. I think about that. People that watch me, they've heard me do this so many times now, where I'm searching for where the character's arc turns, and sometimes there are several big turns in a character arc through the course of a book, but I'm searching for that moment that I call it the flip. It's that flip, and that's in that chapter you were talking about, Kenneth. You can tell where the flip happens because he's suddenly getting just a hair aggressive. He's like, "Oh, I think I will say this," where there's no
Yeah.
way a chapter ago he would have done that. Um,
Yeah.
I love that you're consciously thinking about that too. It really, this is going to sound inappropriate. It turns me on to know that, and I mean that in a muse sort of way. It's not a talking about kissing your ass and you're turning me on, and it's one of them days, I
This is
guess.
why I keep coming back to the show. But yeah, no, I try to be very conscientious of that because when I'm reading, like as a reader, that's something that bugs me is if you're reading a book and a character is a very specific way through 75% of the book, and then because you need an event to happen or a reaction to happen, so you completely change their personality so that the meek soft-spoken character is suddenly screaming at the other character and you're like, the fuck just happened? Like that doesn't make any sense. Like, what are you doing? That character, I know this character, they wouldn't do that.
Hmm.
And so I try and be like very conscious of that because I feel like if nothing else, like I don't write like big like espionage books like Tal or anything like that. Like, but I feel like the one thing that I have going in my books is the characters and that, they feel real. They have real experiences, real emotions. And if nothing else, like that's what I try and get across to people. So
You're nailing it. Somebody in the crowd Tay, just mentioned that she won't necessarily write out linearly the same concept in mind.
mhm.
And I've talked to a lot of authors that do that. Somebody else, Trace, just mentioned when a character makes a decision that isn't within the specifications that you've previously set up, you're setting up the entire first part of the book. This is how the character is going to act. It throws you completely
Yeah.
off. What I have seen, I guess it's a newer author. I don't know. I respect anybody that can sit down and write a book, so I'm not saying I could do it better because I can't. But it seems like they have certain plot points, and you laid that up pretty well, that they need to happen. So they will have that character do something that they wouldn't normally do just because they have to move along the story instead of trusting that character themselves to make the decisions. And from what I've seen, sometimes that happens when um, the plot isn't necessarily laid out because of the character. Um, the plot is laid out, then the characters are plopped in it, as opposed to the characters
Yeah.
being laid out and the plot plays out because of the character decisions, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think because especially in romance, people tend to be either plot driven writers or character writers, and like you can tell, I feel like, because like being a character driven writer, like I know that like my plots tend to be weaker, like they're not as important to the story, especially in my contemporaries. It's more about the characters and that falling in love, whereas somebody who's writing like this big plot where they're like, yes, this is what I want to happen. Now, what characters can I throw in here? It doesn't feel sometimes as organic. Like it could just be any character instead of it being the perfect story for that character. So
Mhm.
yeah, I can definitely see what you mean.
Well, it's external versus internal conflict as well.
Hmm.
I like me some external conflict. Don't get me wrong. I really do enjoy that type of story. And you don't run into it, the external conflict type of thing, as much in romance. It greatly depends, though. Um, I find because romance mashes all these genres together, you can have a sci-fi romance, a fantasy romance, or
Yeah.
contemporary romance, or all these different types of things, and then you add the tropes in on top of that. It's kind of a mishmash of what you're going to get. It's pretty much anything's possible. But I've found that
Yeah.
contemporary, especially, it seems to be almost always internal conflict based as opposed to external conflict. Where like an espionage, like Tal, you mentioned him, those,
Yeah.
and that is external conflict out the fucking ass. bombs flying and shit. Um,
Right.
I do absolutely. I love the external conflict. You just don't see it as often. And
Yeah.
most times, not always, but most times, the external conflict books, romance is almost put on the backside, the back burner for that, which is, I think, why you don't see it as much in the romance genre, if that makes any sense. Um,
Yeah.
some
No, it does.
some somebody just asked, when you're writing a series, do you ever start with your MCs and decide to put them off for the next book, picking two others? That was from Jane.
Yes. Not in not with the Leather and Chrome books, but with my Kincaid Pack series, which I'm working on the 5th book right now. Originally, it was only supposed to be 5 books, but then and the final book was always going to be these 2 specifics. Like I knew that because I knew what that's my only series that has like external conflict, and I knew what obviously was going to happen, what was going to be like the big finale or whatever, and so it had to be these 2 characters. And so I realized in when writing the 4th book, that there was one more character that needed a book when I introduced this random who was supposed to be a random throwaway character, and I was like, oh wait, I really like him, and so I had to adjust things a little bit because what was supposed to be 5 books and the 4th book was leading up to this 5th, and I'm like, okay, now I have to stretch it out a little bit almost because things that were supposed to happen in that 5th book now are happening in the 6th book. But I think it worked out for the best, honestly, because otherwise it might have felt too rushed in a way. Like everything just kind of went like bam, 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 bam. Now there's like this nice kind of breath where you can almost get like caught up with what's happening and figure stuff. I don't want to like give anything away to people, so that's why I'm like being like super vague about it.
Well, you've also been,
But yeah,
even from, I realize I've only read this one series of yours, Leather and Chrome, but you are, and as a fairly new writer, I mean, 12, 13, 14, that's a fairly new writer, dude.
hmm
You've been
hmm
patient from the beginning of the Leather and Chrome series. Some writers will just, lack of a better way to put it, bang it out. But they're jumping through very quickly. You've been very patient with your character development, which is a trait of a writer that's got a ton more experience. No offense, than you do. It's an awesome trait. I absolutely love it. Um, now who did you? I can't remember if I asked you this in one of the last ones or not, Kiki. I'm so sorry. Who did you
it's
really
all right.
observe, your writers in the genre to get that? I mean, were there a couple that you still follow around like a puppy dog, like I do with narrators? Are those?
Like when I got serious about wanting to write, the probably the biggest person that I like looked at what she was doing, how she was doing it was Lucy Lennox.
Mhm.
Like she's the top of the genre. And so if I want to be good, I want to emulate what she's doing. So, I mean, even just like how she did like her bonus content, like I like looked at exactly how she did that so that I could kind of do the same thing so that I could build up my newsletter. So it's I'm like people are already doing this and they're already doing it well. So I just
Mhm.
kind of followed their example. Um doing multiple series at once, like it's funny that you call that patience. Other people are like, hey, finish a fucking series before you start writing another one, lady. So, but
Well,
I don't know, I get like burnt out if I'm writing the same thing for too long. So
mhm.
that's kind of how like I ended up doing multiple series, and so I
It's a lot to juggle. I've heard and
yeah.
I've observed several arguments on this, and Samantha has a question. I'm going to get to that in a second here, but
Okay.
there's two thought processes here, and that I've observed. The first one I've observed with just watching a very popular author, and I've asked her specifically about this, and what she told me was exactly what you just said. Of I get burned out, and the muse quite simply doesn't always strike here. But on top of that,
hmm
she's also mentioned, and other authors that I'm friends with have mentioned this too, that sometimes the series just doesn't hit. And let's face it, you're doing this for love, but you're also doing this for money. And sometimes,
This is true.
yeah, if you've only got one working and book two, you realize, fuck, I'm stuck and I'm in a 3 to 4 book arc and I'm going to have to finish this shit and I'm not going to make any money. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes, if you're working
Yeah.
3 to 4 series, though, you can obviously, you know, go over to another one, start writing another one. And if the muse hits and you got the time and you're flush, you can go back and hit that one again. The one that wasn't doing so well. Why the hell not? That makes better
Yep.
sense. Now, the other way that I've seen it, and I've seen this um, work incredibly well, and I've also seen people get boxed into a trap, okay? And this is when you do just start working one series, and it is incredibly popular, and you are doing so well. And let's say you're on book 5 or book 6 or something like that, and you desperately want to do something else, so you do. You step away from it for a second, you write another book, and it fucking flops because people are like, hey,
Yeah.
what the fuck about this one? It's the George R.R.
We
Martin
like this
syndrome.
series. Yes, we like this
Exactly.
series. That's all we want from you.
Yep. Yep. And I've seen
Yeah.
people burn pseudonyms to the ground because of it, because they just can't get away. And you have
Yeah.
absolutely made the right, in my humble opinion, you've made the right decision. This comes from Samantha. I love the Kincaid Pack series. Will you be doing any more shifter romance books?
1000% yes. So in the fifth book, you're going to meet a separate, like another pack within that universe. And it's very deliberate setup to another series. So, like, I don't want to be coy about it. Like, there will definitely be more stuff. And somebody had asked me, they're like, after the sixth book, like, will you do any more with the Kincaid pack? And I'm like, yeah, like, they will be there. Like, it sounds probably terrible, but they're my bread and butter. Like that series does so well. And so I would be an idiot to be like, okay, let's do something else completely different. And it's not, and I enjoy it. It's not like where you don't want to do it anymore and you're, wanting to burn it to the ground. I do enjoy it. It is a lot more work than my contemporaries, but I like because of the overarching storyline, like that specific series has to end. Like it doesn't make sense for it to just continue on forever. So like that series will end, but then there are all these other avenues that I've left open that I can take to do a little spin-off series here or another one there, this new pack that is getting introduced. So yes, definitely more shifters, a lot in the same universe, and possibly in the future other stuff so that I can, make another world and make up different rules because I get bored and want to do whatever I want.
Well, yeah. Yeah. It wouldn't, just like we were talking about. Another one came in
Yeah.
from Barbie. I'm a huge fan of Leather and Chrome series, aren't we all? How did you come
Thank
up
you.
with the idea for the how did you come up with the idea for the MC to be involved with the DV shelter?
um, you know, I'd like to say there was like this moment where I was like, oh, they need to do this. But it was kind of by accident, I think. It's been a while since I wrote Reckless. So I remember I was okay, no, I do remember. Okay, let me start over. Okay. So when I first started writing Reckless, I knew it was going to obviously be like a motorcycle club series. And traditionally, those series are darker and grittier than what I traditionally write. And so it was a constant like struggle for me to like follow what I wanted to do and try and fit more of what like the genre expects. So like as I was working on it, I was like, they should be doing like something illegal or they should be doing it to like just make it a little bit more
Sex Club.
traditional. Yeah, like Sons of Anarchy kind of darkness or something like that. Like I'm like they need to be, running guns or doing something and Tank doesn't know about it. So it's like this big mystery. And then like as I'm writing it, I'm like, that's a terrible idea. Like A, I don't like it. B, like I feel like it's not true to these characters who, are just a bunch of kinky motorcycle enthusiasts. And so I was like, okay, but I feel like there still needs to be something. And so I've volunteered at a DV shelter I haven't recently with the pandemic, I got out of doing it. But for years I did. And so like I had that experience and I knew that even in real life, like motorcycle clubs kind of can do stuff like that, like going to court with kids who have been abused and stuff like that. Like there's precedence. I didn't completely make it out of thin
Mm.
air, but it was an aspect that I knew something about, and so I could do it and do a good job with it. So that's sort of how it happened in
We
a
were just
roundabout way. I was messing up and
I say we, but it was really me commenting today that um, for a bike, everybody in that biker club is gay. You know that, right? Like every single one of them is.
not every single one,
I'm waiting.
just most of them.
Tracy came up with one that might be on the. It was like one of the guy's brothers or something. I was like, we don't know. He could be having some on the side. Um,
At the end of that book, you'll see that there are other guys who just aren't mentioned. Nobody cares about them. I don't care about them, but like they're there, like with their wives and kids and shit. And you're like, oh,
we
okay.
it
There
cracked
are other people here.
it cracked me up. It was
Oh,
Neil
yeah.
asked, are there any TV shows or movies that inspire you when you plan paranormal shifter books?
Oh, I guess I'll take like a little bit from like everything, um, so that I can, make it fit into what I want to do. And so, like, I'm a big Supernatural fan. Well,
Mm.
I was. After 15 years, is anybody anymore? Um, but anyway, so, and then, like, I watched like Vampire Diaries and stuff like, all the ones that have the really hot guys in it.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
those are the shows that I
oh
watch.
yeah, no, that's
Um,
me too. I'm
and
totally
so
a fan.
I bet you are.
Oh shit.
And so, anyway, I will pick and choose things like a little bit of mythology from or a little something from that and just put it together in a way that is fun for me
Mm.
and I feel like is sort of original without like I'm not one of those people who feel like you have to like break the mold and be completely 100% original because there's a reason romance is a billion-dollar industry and it's because people like it. People like the tropes. People like the familiarity of knowing what's going to happen
Mm.
feels better than the real world does. So I don't I don't feel like I have to be like completely crazy and come something that's 100% authentic. I just pick and choose and do what I like and hope other people like it too.
Well, my son was over last night, and my son and my wife were talking about Supernatural, and
Mm,
my son mentioned,
that's
"Oh,
funny.
have you seen The Boys yet?" Which I've not actually
Oh,
seen.
oh
So
man, I bet you would love it.
well, so this is
So
exactly
much
the
cursing.
conversation that ensued. So Jody said, "Well, I watched the first season and I wasn't very fond of it." And Drew, just my son,
Too
started
much gore for
cackling.
her.
Yeah, Drew started cackling. He's like, "Yeah, I can see why you wouldn't like it." And he said, "Oh, but Jensen Ackles." And she said, "Well, I did watch a little bit of season 3." So
I haven't watched it yet, but I am looking forward to
I
it.
wonder why. I
Yes, I
wonder
hear he like
why.
walks out naked. Like that's how he's introduced. I'm like,
Jesus.
yes, get it, Jensen. Oh, he's so hot.
Oh, shit. I mean, I ain't gay, but he's a good looking man. I'll give him that. He's a,
He is a good actor too. Like I'll give him that. Like I feel like, especially on Supernatural, like he carried that show, which all the Sam girls out there are going to be mad at me, but I'm like, the show wouldn't have been the show without Dean. Like, don't even
well,
let me like get up on my soapbox about it.
how many people have you got like jumping over going, oh, and I'm watching Walker, Texas Ranger now? Because it's just
Oh
not
my
that
god.
fucking many.
I know somebody who started it and like halfway through the first season they were like, I had to stop. I couldn't stand the way he like talked. And I'm like, how was he talking? Because I haven't watched it. I watched like the first episode, and then I was like, I'll just wait for it to be on Netflix, and then I still haven't watched it. But I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I can't remember what they said. They were like, he just like pauses or something. Like he did something weird that he didn't like, and I was like, poor Jared.
Well,
Like he seems
it
like a
reminds me
really
of,
nice person,
dude, back in the day when I would
but
read reviews of my work, it was just like, he pauses in all the wrong places. And I'm like, fuck you. Um, there's another couple that came in here. Samantha asked, would you do a vampire romance series?
yes, that's all I'm gonna say about that for the moment.
um, then Neil came in and said, it's brilliant. First episode, season 3-1. Nearly peed myself with the guy who can shrink and disappear up buttholes.
Oh my god. Oh, I feel like they just are making this show because I sound like a graphic novel or whatever, but I feel like they are just constantly pushing the envelope on like what's acceptable. Like the whole Homelander thing and his obsession with milk. Like, I'm like, I don't, what, why is he so fucking weird? Like, oh, it's such a good show.
I'm gonna
Like,
have to watch it.
it's so different than like anything else. So, and I love Carl Urban to begin with.
Mm.
So, and his like accent is so good in it.
Well,
I
yeah,
love it.
is Carl Urban the guy that played he took over Bones in Star Trek? Is that the same guy? Because he is a
Yes.
hell of a fucking act. Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah. I love him.
Yeah,
Like,
just
love him.
fantastic. Well, so I don't watch a whole lot of TV and such, but of course I've been watching Obi-Wan. I'm a Star Wars freak, but I did watch the new
Oh,
Batman finally, with the dude
oh,
from
I haven't seen that
Twilight.
yet.
Dude,
hmm
it
Robert,
was
he's a great actor.
it's phenomenal. It was really
So is
good.
Wolverine from Twilight. Yeah, like they're both so good, and they've been in great projects since then. But I'm like, you'll still fucking be Edward from Twilight forever. You
Yeah.
poor thing.
It's a
Oh,
very
I feel bad.
difficult thing. Well, you get typecast like me and Daddy roles. You just
hmm
get typecast, and that's pretty much where you're gonna fucking be, you know?
Oh, you poor thing.
It's such a
It
hard
must be
life.
so difficult.
Sitting in my air conditioned booth making noises for money. It's a difficult life to live.
Yeah, it
Uh,
is. I feel
yeah.
so bad for you.
Kiki, you have gained in
Yes.
popularity, by the way, over the course of the last year. Like, not only have I noticed this in just people contacting me excited about me working on your books, but also in comments today and everything else. Congratulations on your success. You are doing
Well,
fantastic.
thank you.
No,
It's funny because I still feel like the same as when I put out the first book. Like, you don't like notice. You know what I mean? Like it happens gradually. So it's like all of a sudden you're like, oh, hey, there's 1,500 people in my group, 8,000 people on my newsletters. I'm
yeah.
like, why do all these people care what I say?
It's absolutely
Weird.
we truly we live a privileged life. This is freaking just a dream come true. Um,
It really
uh,
is.
Stephanie, thank you. I love listening to my voice as well. Kiki, you have been absolutely wonderful. Thank you for coming back again.
Oh, thank you.
Um, yep, as always, I know I missed comments on this, and really today's was kind of hard to keep up with. So if you
Damn
can,
it.
yeah, if you can jump in there at some point. I'm
I'll
going to
do my
go
best.
make I'm going to go make pork chops, and then I think I'm going to get back in the booth by about 8, and I'm going to work on your book some more. So,
Okay.
thank you everyone for participating. Have fun. This is easy part, Kiki. All you got to do is wave at the crowd and say bye.
Bye, crowd.